Hello, and welcome to the Project LA21 website. As our last 7-year project wraps up, a new one has begun. Project LA21 has shifted from implementing community sustainability plans to implementing community sustainability and climate action plans. We are currently about 2 years into this new 7-year research project on deep decarbonization, another research project led by Dr. Amelia Clark. This new research directly builds off our last project. So what is deep decarbonization? Well, climate change has long been recognized as a complex and grand challenge both globally and locally. Since 2015, 197 countries have endorsed the Paris Agreement and are now pursuing efforts to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. In Canada, the federal government has also pledged the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. What these countries have committed to doing is called deep decarbonization. It refers to a shift away from fossil fuels and other greenhouse gas emissions with the aim of reaching net zero emissions. From a broader perspective, it's a transformation aimed to break carbon lock-in, or the tendency for carbon-heavy systems to lock out lower carbon alternatives from predominant use. This transformation is larger than smaller incremental approaches towards mitigation that various cities and actors have done in the past. This research project began with a study conducted in collaboration with ICLEI Canada. Samantha Linton, a previous master's student, completed a study titled Pathways to Deep Decarbonization at the Local Level, where she examined the best practices of global cities that have not only committed to deep decarbonization, but are well on their way to achieving carbon neutrality. From her research, there were 4 key elements that must be considered when examining deep decarbonization at the local level. The first is having a clear vision, ambitious targets, and a well-thought-out implementation plan, all that look to continually improve over time. Next is creating your implementation plan to address carbon lock-in, or looking towards the shift and transformation of systems to become net zero. Third is that your plan must consider societal and technological transformation. And lastly, it must address environmental and social justice to ensure that no one gets left behind in the deep decarbonization processes, and instead, social equity is improved. This research project has asked questions such as, what are the technical pathways being developed by cities, and what are the greenhouse gas emissions happening at the local level, among several others? And through Linton's study, 4 key priority sectors to address are electricity, buildings, transportation, and waste, along with carbon sinks and offsets. Electricity can be addressed through increasing renewable energy in the electrical grid. Buildings can be separated into 2 types, existing and new buildings. While existing buildings need to be targeted for retrofitting and increase energy efficiency, new buildings need to be built to zero emission standards. Similarly, transportation can also be separated into 2 types of shifts, mode and fuel shifts. Mode shifts refer to the shift from personal vehicles to active or public transit, whereas fuel shifts focus on switching from vehicles with combustible engines to electric or zero-emission vehicles. The 4th key priority sector is waste, which is generally considered the smallest of these sectors. However, it needs to be addressed through capturing and eliminating landfill gases, along with developing several types of waste-to-energy systems. There's also carbon sinks and offsets, which, unlike the others, is not a priority sector, but rather the opposite. Once a local government or city has eliminated as many emissions as it can from the key priority sectors, they can look to carbon sinks and offsets to eliminate those remaining emissions, which can be done through increasing the local capacity of sinks or by purchasing carbon offsets. We have also come to understand the tools available to local governments to assist in their implementation of climate action plans. There are 4 types of local government tools and strategies, including engagement, policy tools, financial tools, and green economy. Engagement refers specifically to who the local government is engaging with and how they are doing so. Policy tools refer to the types of plans and programs that cities are using and whether or not they're implementing different bylaws, standards, or building codes. Financial tools can be classified into 4 types: infrastructure investments used to influence resident behavior, market-based instruments such as the price it costs to ride public transit, financial incentives, and cities divesting pension funds to move away from fossil fuels and reinvest in local climate action. Finally is green economy, which can also be classified into 4 categories, including if cities are greening procurement policies, whether or not a green economy is considered a co-benefit of a climate action plan, targeting green businesses, and training local workforce. Beyond the techno-economic pathways and local government tools and strategies, we have also examined the governance structures that are being developed and used to implement these climate action plans. This leads into the corresponding work of Ying Zhou, one of our PhD students who, in partnership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, worked with Dr. Clark to create a guidebook on the governance for deep decarbonization in Canadian cities. Building on the previous research, this guidebook seeks to establish a common understanding of the decarbonization pathways, strategies, and governance structures for significant greenhouse gas emission reduction at the local level. Particularly, it looks to support Canadian municipalities in planning their climate mitigation efforts through offering governance structures for implementing both corporate and community-wide climate action plans. Through this work, 5 governance structures were detailed: coordination and oversight, communication, reporting and monitoring, strategy integration and implementing actions, and budgeting. In the interest of time, I'll be explaining a bit about the governance structures in the municipal climate action plans, or in other words, the corporate climate action plans. Coordination and oversight with regards to this study refer to how climate change staff or teams are organized depending on the size of the municipality. There are different advantages of these arrangements between small and large municipalities, and the role of these teams is to help oversee and support progress towards decarbonization. Communication refers to internal communication, or more specifically, how a municipality adopts a structure of communication between the various actors involved, the departments within it, public engagement, and other aspects such as staff training opportunities. Creating a formalized structure of communication is essential for the effectiveness and efficiency of the planning and implementation phases. Reporting and monitoring looks at how municipalities must establish formalized, regular reporting and monitoring structures to track both their corporate and community-wide progress towards 2050 climate goals. Monitoring will also need to be completed by both the coordination team and the oversight entity, where actions are revised as needed. Strategy integration is where decarbonization efforts must be embedded into all related municipal planning, services, and operations in order to have deeper transformation, greenhouse gas emission reduction, and to help reach community-wide targets. Lastly is budget, which refers not only to the funds necessary from internal and external factors for plan implementation, but also additional funding options. So far, we have only looked at case studies from the global north and developed countries, but we have begun to expand our research and see how much of this research is relevant and what new lessons we may learn from cities in the global south that are approaching deep decarbonization. For example, Bayod Akomalev, another master's student, will examine the governance strategies for deep decarbonization in cities in sub-Saharan Africa. The influence of global climate change has been severe, especially in regions such as Africa. As growing megacities have begun sprouting in the region due to urban migration, there remains a level of extreme poverty felt by a majority of the region. It has been recognized that global climate change can further poverty, and with an ever-increasing number of people reaching these levels, there's an urgent need for the transition to low-carbon economic systems to ensure that it doesn't get worse. Local sustainable development can be integrated with deep decarbonization pathways. Another future direction for the research project is bringing a sustainability justice lens to deep decarbonization implementation in cities to ensure that deep decarbonization efforts also both support sustainable community development and social equity improvement. Relatedly, that stakeholder engagement and partnerships are effectively designed. For example, Savina Patara, a current PhD student, and Leah Forward, an incoming PhD student, will be studying this. Our study will also be looking at climate budgeting and reporting, led by PhD student Jolene Marlowe. Ultimately, while these are some of the research projects that we have begun in our shift towards deep decarbonization and the implementation of climate action plans, there's so much more that we're looking at and that we hope to share during our 7-year project. Our hope is that through looking at deep decarbonization, we can help local governments around the world in their implementation of both community sustainability and climate action plans. If you wish to learn more about the work we have done, you can find all the information under the Research Dissemination tab on our website. For our previous publications, you can find them under the Related Publications tab. To consider collaborating with us, please see the Contact Us tab. If you wish to check out more of our other resources, such as our YouTube channel, listed below are the links to guide you there. Thank you.